The sun was scorching hot that afternoon in the village of Okoro. In the middle of the dusty compound, Michael stood, sweat dripping from his forehead, his chest rising and falling with anger. He had worked 3 long months on Mr. James' farm, digging, planting, carrying heavy loads, and still he had not received a single coin. "Sir, I beg you," Michael's voice was firm though his body was tired. "Please today, give me what you owe me. I cannot continue like this." Mr. James leaned back on his wooden chair, his eyes red from palm wine. His lips curled into a wicked smile. Slowly, his gaze shifted to where Amara was sweeping the sandy floor. Her hands were weak, her back bent, her eyes downcast as though she carried the weight of the world. "You want money?" Mr. James asked, rubbing his chin. "Yes, sir. 3 months of work." "Please pay me," Michael replied. A dark chuckle escaped Mr. James' throat. He pointed at Amara with his cracked finger. "Forget money. Take that girl instead." The broom fell from Amara's hands. Her heart thundered in her chest. "Daddy, please." "No," she cried, her knees hitting the ground. "Shut up," he barked, his voice like a whip. "You should be grateful someone even wants you." Beside him, Mrs. Linda folded her arms, a cruel smirk spreading across her face. "Let her go," she said coldly. "One less mouth to feed." Michael froze. His heart pounded. Was this man truly offering his own daughter as payment? He looked at Amara, her trembling shoulders, her tear-filled eyes. Something in her brokenness touched him deeply. Silence stretched. Then Michael said, almost in a whisper, "I'll take her." And in that moment, Amara's life changed forever. What fate awaits Amara in the hands of this stranger? Before that scorching afternoon, before her father traded her away like a bag of yam, Amara's life had been nothing but hardship. Yet it wasn't always so. Once, the house of Mr. James had been filled with laughter. Amara's mother, a gentle woman with a soft singing voice, used to hum sweet songs while cooking. Amara remembered sitting by the fire as her mother stirred the pot of soup, the smell of fresh vegetables filling the air. Those days were warm, safe, and full of love. But when death snatched her mother 5 years ago, everything changed. Mr. James, who once worked the farm with pride, found comfort only in palm wine. At first, the villagers pitied him. But soon, pity turned to whispers. He began to stagger home late, his eyes red, his words sharp like knives. Then came Mrs. Linda. She arrived with painted lips and a tongue as smooth as oil. At first, she pretended to care for Amara. But soon her true face appeared. She hated the young girl with a burning passion. "Lazy child," she would bark. "Go fetch firewood. Sweep the compound. Pound the yam. And don't you dare eat until the rest of us are full." Many nights, Amara went to bed hungry, her stomach growling, her cheeks wet with silent tears. She worked like a servant in her own father's house, yet no one defended her. The villagers saw her suffering, but they only shook their heads. "It is her father's home," they muttered. "Who are we to interfere?" Amara's only friend was her little half-brother, David. He would sneak her pieces of roasted corn or a mango when Mrs. Linda wasn't looking. With his small hands, he would wipe her tears and whisper, "One day you will smile again." But Amara wondered, would that day ever come? Her heart longed for freedom, but she never imagined how it would arrive, in the form of a stranger with torn shoes. The first time Amara saw Michael, he was walking into the village with a worn bag slung over his shoulder. His shirt was faded, his trousers dusty, and his shoes had holes so wide that his toes peeked out. Yet, despite his rough appearance, there was something unusual about him, his eyes. They were sharp, filled with determination, like a man who refused to give up no matter how hard life struck him. Michael had come from the city, searching for work. The farms in Okoro were large, and the villagers always needed strong hands to clear the thick bush, plant yams, and carry heavy loads. Mr. James was quick to hire him, promising good pay once the harvest came. From that day, Michael worked like an ox. He rose before dawn, his hands blistered from the hoe, his back bent from lifting bundles of firewood. Under the scorching sun, while others rested, he pressed on. The villagers soon noticed. "That young man is strong," they whispered. "But why does Mr. James delay his pay?" Amara, from a distance, also noticed him. While sweeping the compound or fetching water, She often caught sight of him bent over the fields, sweat running down his face. He never complained. But she also saw the frustration in his eyes each time Mr. James waved him away without wages. At first, Amara was afraid of him, another stranger in her troubled life. But sometimes when their eyes met, she saw a kindness in him, a gentleness that reminded her faintly of her late mother. Still, months passed, and Michael's pockets remained empty. Hunger gnawed at him, but he endured. Until one day, his patience snapped, and he marched into the compound to demand his due. And that was the day everything changed. Life in Mr. James' house was nothing but endless labor for Amara. Each morning before the cock crowed, Mrs. Linda's voice would pierce the air like a spear. "Amara, lazy girl. Get up and fetch water before the sun rises." Half asleep and hungry, Amara would drag her tired body to the stream, balancing the heavy clay pot on her head as she stumbled back. No sooner had she arrived than another command would follow. "Go to the farm. Clear the weeds. Don't think of resting until your hands bleed." From dawn till dusk, she toiled like a slave. Her clothes were torn, her feet cracked, and her belly often empty. Sometimes, after serving food to her father, Mrs. Linda, and little David, she was left only with scraps, or nothing at all. Meanwhile, Michael's hardship was different but just as heavy. On the farm, he poured out his strength day after day. His hands developed thick calluses, his back ached as though it carried the whole village. Each time he approached Mr. James for his wages, the answer was always the same. "Tomorrow. Next week. After I sell the yams." Michael clenched his jaw and swallowed his anger. How could he leave when he had worked so much? Yet how could he stay when hunger twisted his stomach? Amara often watched him from afar. She saw the weariness in his eyes, a mirror of her own silent suffering. And sometimes, their gazes met briefly, as if sharing a secret language. "We are both trapped. We are both waiting for freedom that never comes." But deep in Amara's heart, she wondered, whose suffering would break first, Michael's patience, or her own spirit? The answer would come on that fateful scorching afternoon, when Michael could endure no more. Life in Mr. James' house was nothing but endless labor for Amara. Mrs. Linda, who had been pounding pepper in the corner, paused, smirking. She leaned on the mortar and whispered sharply, "Pay him something, or he will not leave." Mr. James turned his head slowly, his gaze falling on Amara. She was sweeping the sandy compound, her face pale with exhaustion, her broom dragging weakly across the ground. A wicked thought lit up his drunken mind, curling his lips into a smile. "You want your wages?" he sneered, pointing at his own daughter. "Take that girl instead. She will be your payment." The broom slipped from Amara's hand. Her heart froze. "Daddy, please no," she cried, falling to her knees. "Shut your mouth," he roared, slamming his gourd on the ground. "You should thank me that someone is even willing to take you." Mrs. Linda folded her arms and hissed, "Let her go. One less burden in this house." Michael's chest tightened. He looked at Amara, her trembling shoulders, her tear-filled eyes, and in that silence, the whole world seemed to wait for his answer. The next morning, the rooster crowed, but for Amara, the sound was different. It was not the call to fetch water or sweep the compound, it was the sound of departure. Her heart pounded as she stuffed her few belongings into a black nylon bag, 2 worn wrappers, a faded blouse, and the small wooden comb her mother had once used. No one came to see her off. Mrs. Linda only smirked, pleased to see her go. Mr. James sipped his palm wine as if nothing was happening. Only little David, her half-brother, slipped out quietly, tears running down his cheeks. He clutched her hand tightly. "Don't leave me, sister," he whispered. Amara knelt, hugging him close. "I must go, David. But one day, I will come back for you. Be strong." As Michael led her away, Amara could hear David's small voice crying behind the house until it faded into silence. The journey to the city was long. They boarded a rusty old bus, its wooden seats shaking with every bump on the road. Amara sat by the window, staring at the trees and dusty paths rushing past. Her heart ached with fear and uncertainty. She had left behind the only life she knew, even if it was filled with pain. What awaited her in this strange new world? She clasped her hands tightly and prayed silently, "Lord, please let this man not be cruel like my father. Please give me peace." Michael said little during the journey. Yet from time to time, he glanced at Amara with quiet concern. In his eyes, she saw not cruelty, but something different, perhaps pity, perhaps hope. As the bus drew closer to the glowing lights of the city, Amara's heart trembled. A new chapter was beginning, but would it bring freedom, or another prison? The city was full of promises, but also full of secrets. When the bus finally screeched to a stop in the heart of the city, Amara's eyes widened. She had never seen such chaos: yellow buses honking, hawkers chasing cars with baskets of oranges and groundnuts, women balancing trays of bread on their heads, and loud music pouring from nearby shops. To her, it was another world entirely, loud yet alive. Michael carried her bag as they walked through winding streets until they arrived at a tall black gate. It creaked open into a spacious compound. At the center stood a grand white house with glass windows that glittered under the evening sun. Amara gasped. "Is this where you live?" Michael smiled faintly, shaking his head. "No, that is Madam's house. I live over there." He pointed to a smaller building tucked away near the fence. It was a modest boys' quarters with just one room, a bed, a small wooden table, and a kerosene stove in the corner. But to Amara, it looked like a palace compared to the leaking roof and cracked mud walls she had always known. "You can stay here," Michael said softly. "I don't have much, but at least you'll have peace." Amara ran her fingers over the clean bed sheet and sat gently on the edge. Tears welled in her eyes. For the first time in years, she wasn't being shouted at, beaten, or forced to work until her back ached. This small room felt like a safe haven. That night, as the compound lights flickered on and the city buzzed in the distance, Amara whispered a prayer of gratitude. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, her life was beginning anew. The next morning, the compound was alive with the sound of footsteps, clanging pots, and a distant radio playing high-life music. Amara awoke to the smell of fried plantain drifting from the big house. Her stomach rumbled. She hadn't eaten properly in days. Michael knocked softly on her door. "Amara, come. Madam wants to meet you." Her heart raced. She straightened her wrapper and followed him nervously toward the grand house. Inside, everything sparkled: the tiled floor, the glass table, the wide curtains swaying gently in the breeze. Amara felt small, like a village girl lost in a palace. At the dining table sat Madam Williams, a woman in her late 50s with short gray hair, gold-rimmed glasses, and an air of quiet authority. She looked up from her newspaper, her sharp eyes studying Amara from head to toe. "So," Madam Williams said slowly, "this is the girl?" "Yes, madam," Michael replied respectfully. "She will be staying with me. She's hard-working and humble." Madam raised an eyebrow. "Hard-working, eh? We shall see." She turned to Amara. "Can you cook?" "Yes, ma," Amara said softly. "Can you clean?" "Yes, ma." "Good." Madam leaned back in her chair. "This house must always be spotless. I hate laziness. And I dislike lies. If you are honest and diligent, you will find peace here. But if you are careless," she paused, her eyes narrowing, "you will not last." Amara bowed her head, her palms sweaty. "I will not disappoint you, ma." Madam watched her for a long moment, then gave a small nod. "Very well. You may begin by helping in the kitchen." As Amara walked toward the kitchen, her heart pounded. This was her chance, her test. And she knew that from this moment, every step she took in Madam Williams' house would shape her destiny. Days turned into weeks, and Amara slowly adjusted to life in the city. Every morning, she rose before the compound stirred, swept the compound paths, and helped Madam Williams prepare breakfast. The smell of steaming yam porridge, fried eggs, and hot tea always filled the kitchen, but Amara often ate last, if anything was left. Still, she was grateful for shelter, for peace, and for a chance to prove herself. But life in the city was not without its shadows. The compound's other workers, gardeners, cleaners, and drivers, were curious about her. Some mocked her simple village clothes. Others whispered behind her back, saying Michael had only brought her for his own gain. Their laughter stung, but Amara remained quiet, refusing to quarrel. One afternoon, Madam Williams tested her patience. A tray of expensive plates slipped from the cook's hand and crashed to the floor. The cook quickly blamed Amara. "It was her fault, madam. She distracted me." Amara's heart stopped. She knew the truth but also knew Madam hated excuses. "Is this true?" Madam Williams asked, her piercing gaze fixed on Amara. Amara swallowed hard. Her lips trembled, but she spoke calmly. "No, Ma. I did not touch the tray. But if you believe it is my fault, I will accept whatever punishment you give me." Madam studied her silently for a long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, she smiled faintly. You speak with courage. I like that." But while Madam seemed impressed, the cook's eyes burned with jealousy. From that day, Amara became a target. At night, lying on her small bed in Michael's room, Amara whispered to herself, "This city is full of trials. But I will not give up. One day, my story will change." The city tested Amara in ways the village never had. She faced whispers, jealousy, and endless tasks that left her hands blistered. Yet, her spirit grew stronger with every passing day. One evening, while Madam Williams entertained visitors in the parlor, the jealous cook saw her chance. She secretly poured too much salt into the soup and, when the guests complained, pointed her finger at Amara. "Madam, it was this girl. She ruined the food." Gasps filled the room. Amara's knees weakened, but she lifted her head bravely. "Madam, I did not touch the soup. I only carried it to the table." The guests murmured. Madam Williams was silent for a long time, her sharp eyes moving between Amara and the cook. Then she turned to Michael. "Bring me the kitchen boy." The boy, trembling, confessed the truth, that the cook had ordered him to lie against Amara. The cook fell to her knees, begging. But Madam Williams' face was stern. "Enough. You tried to destroy an innocent girl. Leave my house at once." Amara gasped. For the first time, someone defended her. Her eyes filled with tears, but this time, they were tears of relief. That night, Madam Williams called Amara into her sitting room. "Child," she said gently, "I have watched you. You are patient, honest, and hardworking. From today, you will no longer serve as just a helper. You will go to school. I will sponsor you." Amara's heart nearly burst. She fell on her knees, weeping. "Thank you, Ma. May God bless you." Michael, standing in the corner, smiled quietly. He had seen something in her spirit long before anyone else did. And so the girl who once packed her life into a black nylon bag now carried something greater: hope, dignity, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow.